So when it comes down to choosing a good sim cockpit or sim rig, however you want to call it, the market is flooded with all these options. But when you start off, normally you're just in a chair, folding chair or whatever, you're just sitting at your computer desk and you just have it bolted to your desk or with a little snap-on screw, whatever you do to tie it down. And at some point you realize, yeah, that's just not gonna work. You start Googling or shopping for different ones and you're like, what makes most sense to buy? So I thought today I'd talk about different options that may make sense to you. Maybe you might want to go that route. I've got 4 in front of me. And if you notice, the one type I don't have is the aluminum rigs, the Lego set where you buy it, they mail you like 20 boxes of aluminum bars, you put it together. I'm gonna talk about in a minute why I don't use that setup and the setups that I have, and then what they cost. So starting from right to left, like I said, I've got the R-Seat P1. That is from, I think, Bulgaria. It was about $1,400. The big deal with that one was it comes with a really nice sparkled chair. If you try to buy that chair alone, it's $1,000. Try to buy it. It's $1,000 for the sparkled chair. I think that's the QRT Club, whatever chair it is. And so the rig is literally a solid rock. And I've got a funny story. When you buy it, it comes imported into your country. If you say you live in the United States via DHL. And when you import it through DHL, I literally had to fill out paperwork to the DOT because it was so heavy. It's literally made out of a car frame, it feels like. The box weighs a metric, I don't know, it was like 500 pounds. The box is insane. You have to take it apart to bring it in your house. And I had to fill out the paperwork. I had to fill out DOT paperwork. They thought it was a car. I had to explain to them that it's a sim rig. I know it looks like a car chair, it's not. So that took a couple of days to process. But that was hilarious, the fact that I had to fill out motor carrier paperwork. The next one to your left of that is the Playseat F1. I love that thing. I think I bought it for $400 used. They go for $1,300 new. That's the only one I didn't really buy, new anywhere sorts because it's just too much new. And going between those two sets, you've got the GT open wheel driving setup of the R-Seat where you can kind of tilt the wheel back and forth, or you can go the full F1 style on the Playseat where your butt's on the ground, your feet's in the air. It's almost uncomfortable after a certain age in a certain time frame, but it's very nice. And then to the left of that, I've got 2 cheaper sets. I've got an old, cheapy racing chair with duct tape on it, tied to one of those Amazon $140. It looks like a, what do you want to call it, C-clamp almost setup. And it's funny, it works great. It works great. If you're just using like a simple Thrustmaster Logitech setup, works great. And then behind that, I've got an Obudo setup. That was like, it was free, a gift from my brother, but it's actually pretty cheap. They're like $500 new. And that one's decent. Obviously, I converted that to my flight setup. And then on the other one, I use it for my HOTAS setup. So the good thing about flight setups is you really don't need anything fancy. As long as you're sitting there, you got something to push with your hands and feet, it's good. In fact, the Thrustmaster's not on the red setup. I took it off. But say you're looking at all this kind of stuff and you want to spend about $1,000. If you're spending $1,000, you're probably looking at all the Next Level and all those other brands that are all the same thing. They're all the same aluminum set. They mail you an aluminum set with a bunch of Lego pieces and you put it together, and there's a lot of customization you can do with it. And the reality is you're not going to stop there because sometimes they come with a chair, sometimes they don't, and you'll need to do a few other things. For example, measuring things out, making sure your shifter and pedals mount up correctly. Some of them have good shifter plates, some of them don't. Pedal plates. Just make sure you're buying one with a good pedal plate so you don't have to sit there and drill out things. Drilling out things gets old fast. If you've ever done metal drilling, yeah, it's easy. It's not that hard, but it gets old and you're going to cut yourself at some point. Ask me how I know. And you want a good shifter, a shifter mounting setup. And those usually have a good setup for shifting or to put your shifter on, depending if you're doing sequential or an H pattern. But I really didn't want to deal with all that, honestly. At some point, I may buy one of those. If you've got the money, if you can get one for really cheap, I truly suggest a Playseat F1, the one in the middle. To me, I think that gives the most arcade style. Like if you're sitting in it, and I've let other folks drive the stuff, my brother and some friends of mine, and the F1 just kind of like it's almost like a wow factor. When you sit in it, it feels like you're sitting in an F1 car. I would not spend $1,300 on that. I don't think that's a good idea to spend 1,300 bucks on that. It doesn't, there's no way to even put a shifter mount. I put a video on there how to make a shifter mount for it. You can actually drill into it or use the weight of the chair when you're sitting on it. But it is very easy because there's really only 6 bolts to put it together. Everything mounts on there really easily. It's a joke to set up. So if you can get a Playseat F1 used, just do it. If you've got the money for the aluminum rig and you want to invest a lot of time and customization into it, that's always going to be the top rig. There's a reason why you always see that on the main sites, people use that. If you're like me, and it's not about the money per se, it's just about the enjoyment, I'm going to tell you now, the R seat is unbeatable. Like, I don't care what anyone says about the aluminum stuff. The R seat is legit. It makes you feel good. There's no movement. There's no flex. That thing weighs so much. I can't stress you. Like, when people put these rigs on casters and wheels, I'm like, I don't know how they can do that. Like, I know some casters are really strong, but that setup there would absolutely just bend or break any set of casters you put on there, unless you bought some crazy heavy duty things. It ain't even worth it. You can just look at it. It's really not designed to be on casters. It's already pushing a hole into the ground on my second story here. But I love it. It's awesome. The only customization I've really done with it is just the fact that I've, put a little mount. Like I use an iPad mount on the right, so you can see the iPad there, and I used an iPad mount on the left where I put my motorcycle gauge for F1 driving. And then at some point I will find a way to mount the Corvette dash. I really want to put it on top of the Fanatec base, and then change the screens out so the FOV is so much better and then the screens work better. I really don't want a giant TV in my face like some of these guys do. I don't think that's healthy at all to have a 50, 65, 70-inch screen right in your face. That's really not a good idea. I need to go smaller, 3 monitors, and I want to put that Corvette dash on top of it in front of me. So if you're lazy like me and you really don't want to do a lot of work and you've got the money, buy the R seat. If you can get a good R seat used, that's not even no-brainer. Just buy it. Okay, now you're on the other side of the coin and money is a bigger deal to you. I understand, we've all been there. You're buying some Thrustmaster, Logitech stuff for cheap, and you don't want to sit at your desk anymore. You want to sit on a rolling chair, like a folding chair up to your desk. We have all done it. We've all been there. So I'm not knocking you, but we want to upgrade from that. Those $100 cheapy Amazon, eBay ones in the front that I'm using on that red one and on the red setup there, they actually work great. Yeah, there's flex. Of course there's flex. You can move it around if you really want to. It's not designed for direct drive. It's not designed for overly strong force feedback. But it gives you a good feeling. And you don't care if you beat it up or scratch it up or let somebody jump in there and mess something up. Not a big deal. And then you can undo the chair and then put your HOTAS on it. I think that's one of the best bets. If you're just using a Logitech G90 or a base Thrustmaster setup, I honestly would go with that. Though Budo, I don't recommend, honestly. That setup, like I said, it was a gift, so it's free. You can get them for like $300-400 used. There's a reason most people just get rid of that. I think it's like $600 new, honestly. I know they've upgraded a lot. They've redone a lot of the things on it, but I've got the old setup on there, and I don't like it. So I'm about to do some zooming in here, so I'm sorry for the camera movement. I'm going to zoom in on this to kind of explain a little bit more real fast so you can see what I'm doing here. Don't mind the towel on the seat. Hard driving session or flying session, you get hot. Just easy to wash the towel when you're done. Ignore the tape, that's just for the age. But yeah, so this setup here, trying to see if I can do this in camera. It moves a bit. It moves. You can kick it, it's gonna move. And it's just meant to just kind of hold your stuff. Obudo, same thing. If you notice, I've got it for my flight sim, whatever that, I forgot that stuff is, the avionics, whatever that brand was. I don't even remember the brand name on it. The chair is pretty good. You can recline on stuff, but yeah, this stuff is not super strong, but you can move it. You can move it. Like, so if you're driving hard and when you're racing, that's gonna move. It sucks. It's not that great. But for flying, perfect. This stuff, easy. Same thing if you're just using for flying or sim flight or whatever. If you're playing X-Plane, Flight Simulator, or if you're playing Ace Combat 7, that game's awesome. Ace Combat is perfect. This setup here, if you notice, I'm using a TV stand for my 49-inch, and I've got a wireless boombox because I'm just running audio and video all the way around the room to the computer in the other room. This setup here, it moves a little bit. I've got it a little higher, but it moves. But when you're sitting in it, it doesn't really move that much. When you're sitting on this stuff, it doesn't move. Your weight's holding it down. So it looks like it flexes a bit, but it's not really. It's really just, you're sitting in it, you don't feel it. And of course, this thing, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if I haven't tightened anything, but the top of the chair moves, but the bottom of the chair doesn't move, and the whole rig itself doesn't move. The top of the chair moves. I know I'm talking fast here. The top of the chair moves just because it's a, what do you call it, polycarbonate seat. It's very light. But the actual rig, nothing's going anywhere. I mean, I'm pulling hard. I don't want to yank, but I'm pulling hard. Nothing's going to move. This whole thing is steel. There's nothing moving. So even though the top of the chair can move, I don't want my hand right here. The top of the chair can move a little bit. When you're sitting in it, nothing moves. The frame doesn't move, nothing moves. The steering wheel, you feel the full direct drive force because nothing's moving. And then what's awesome on this is that double shifter mount. I love that. That's awesome. There's a lot of variations you can do. You can add your sequential and your H pattern. I'm going to add another shifter there. I love that a lot. Because on the aluminum one, you can only have one bracket. You could add another one, honestly, but it comes with one. I like the idea that there's two on the right. So hopefully this helped you out a bit. If you're confused, you're not sure what to do with your sim setup, and you're wanting to spend some money, feel free to post a comment or ask a question. I can give you some direction. I'm just going to finish off just by showing you some stuff here. But yeah, at some point I will buy the aluminum setup, and I'm going to change out those screens on my main setup. If you're wondering where the computer is, I just literally run video cables all the way around to this side of the room. So I know it's a mess. Sorry about that. But yeah, here's my computer setup there. And if you look, there's wires. They just go along the wall. It all works great. All right, ask me if you have any questions. I'll be glad to help you. Thanks for watching.